name's Tom Phardel. I'm a ceramic artist for the last 30 years in Michigan. I'm head of ceramics at College for Creative Studies for the last 25 years. I've been primarily a Detroit-based artist, though I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where our studios are at. And I work mainly in ceramics is my main love, but I also work in several other materials, steel, resins, wood. Well, my inspirations come primarily from traveling. We've been fortunate enough to travel throughout the world. And within those travels, what I'm most interested in is the sense of time and history. So we've been to Egypt and Japan and India, many other countries, but those being the most influential. And I'm very attracted to ritual and practice, historical practice. And then within Detroit, working in Detroit, it's like another world there. And I'm driving by the Rouge plant and all this heavy-duty industrial facilities, and the forms are beautiful. The deterioration of the city is actually quite beautiful. And I'm attracted to those qualities, and those have influenced my work heavily. Well, the beauty of the materials that I work with, ceramics being clay being my #1 foundation material, I just love the whole process of clay making, from wet to leather hard to bone dry to glazing to firing it in the kiln. And with that material, you have a partner, and that's your process. And the kiln becomes a vital partner to work with. So usually within the ceramic material, I work in conjunction with the kiln to allow the kiln to add marks to my marks, so everything isn't quite so conscious. So I try to create a framework within that context that those marks will be marks that I enjoy. So it isn't randomness, but it is allowing some freedom. I find that the kiln does things that I would never ever do. And then I look at them and I find out that that is actually the perfect solution to what I'm trying to get to. Not quite so conscious and everything in its right space. I work with steel mainly because as I used to work many years ago very large, I needed the steel for structural support. Then I enjoyed welding steel. It's a whole nother ball game. It's not as romantic at all to me, but it does allow me to work very large scale and very light. And I have rollers and equipment in my studio to fabricate. And so I do enjoy that work, mainly with my lifestyle. It allows me to come back to a piece months later and just pick up at that point, whereas with the clay work, you have to be more conscious that it's drying out and you have a much smaller window, working window. Lately, I've been working with resins and cast glass and formed glass, using acids to etch and mark the material. And I've really enjoyed the aspect of translucency. Again, it allows the viewer to be taken into or obscure a view that I put a lot of forms behind these acid etched pieces of glass, or they're perforated through the glass to give a illusion that there's something behind this window. And again, that works practically, but also metaphorically to take you into interior thoughts that I'm trying to express. Well, my creative process, usually I do not have a formalized concept to start with. I develop my ideas usually through memory of travels or experiences, and I start off at that point and then pick a material that best will express that point of view. And then as I start working on the project, I really get insights as to exactly what I want to do. So whereas many artists draw and think extensively before they get started, I kind of learn as I'm working as to exactly what I want. So within ceramic media, it's easier to be that kind of more intuitive, and as I'm working on it, I go, no, I want this bigger, I want this smaller. I make those decisions on the spot. And I work from there, and I just fine tune, fine tune, fine tune, fine tune. Well, my work is in nature very simple forms that are familiar to any, I believe, any age group or any culture throughout the world. And so I try to deal with familiar objects that you can't quite put your finger on. So a lot of people see the large steelwork in the exhibition as being kayaks or sort of boat-like forms. That was not what I saw in it originally, but I've been, over the years, I see what they see. So I do work with objects and forms. The bowl form, of course, is a historical form, and that framework allows me to make a meditative interior to it. So it's not about a bowl, it's about the structure that the bowl gives for the format, the metaphorical format. I want my work to be peaceful, quiet, sort of more understated, very positive, nothing negative. We get enough of that in our daily life. So I'm more trying to talk about memories or feelings, emotions that everyone would have, and my work would sort of bring those memories back to their attention. So I use the analogy of going swimming in a lake. You've been swimming 1,000 times, but when you go in and you see it and you do it again, it's always refreshing and enlightening, and I hope my work will be in that category of you're seeing something that you have some kind of familiarity with, but it gives you insights to thoughts that you might have. Well, on several of the pieces within the show and throughout my career, I've used a hole or portal, as I describe it, to sort of take you into an inner world. So my work is really about taking you on some kind of a journey, and the portal is the focal entry point that a viewer can kind of start at and see the exterior form, and the portal takes you to the interior physically and also metaphorically into the interior of your mind, or the trip that I'm trying to take the viewer on. I've used that throughout my whole career. I just find that to be a universal, the idea of a little hole that you can peek in and see something behind the scenes happening. Well, when we first started traveling, of course, I grew up in Detroit, and I never really I had a normal childhood, but when we started traveling and we went to Egypt, let's say, and we saw the pyramids, it wasn't so much how big they were, because in relationship to contemporary architecture, I've seen things that big, but it was the idea that they were solid stone primarily. And the idea of the weight of stone and the density of stone was really influential for me. And in some of my artwork, or at least in the work in this show, some of the works are double wall pieces that imply mass and weight. And I really enjoy that quality. And I also don't want to fake it. So some of my work is actually extremely heavy, because I don't want to have this illusion that it's really heavy and then it really doesn't weigh what it visually looks like. So within reason, I can't make it so heavy I can't move it, but I try to keep truth to the idea of the visual weight as being actual in physicality. Well, the zigzag totem, that would be in the category of the large metal wall pieces. What's I find interesting for myself within that is that piece was made, partially made about 8 years ago, and it kind of sat in my studio and I wasn't happy with it. And then trying to get ready for this show, I decided to cut the top half off and just totally reorganize all the form. I think it came out to my liking, and the surface on it is a sort of washed out, gravity-oriented, dripping kind of surface on it. And I like the idea on that piece of giving it a sense of time, that it's already had a life, a history, and those markings are on the work, which I enjoy quite a bit. Another work would be Ancestors, and that's the piece, wall piece again, that's using a cast glass, acid etched cast glass, that you kind of see a sort of a silhouette behind, but you can't see any kind of detail. You just have a vague idea of what it is, and it perforates through the glass into an oval form that's got cast resin, almost like frozen water jewel in the middle of it. And I enjoy that piece for the quality that it, the title indicates that you have these memories of people from your past that are no longer here, or some kind of distant memory that you can't see clearly, but you have the essence. And I think those pieces hopefully captivate that quality. The other part of the exhibition, Sharon Q, is my wife, and of almost 30 years. And so what I found interesting for myself within the show, we normally independently work as artists. We're not a husband and wife team per se. But what was enjoyable about seeing the show up in the Marshall Frederick space was how much we complemented each other's work, and how much we both have influenced each other in subtle ways that we could see within the work. And so that was a gradual, not a conscious thing that happened, just how it seeps into your life, and was seen within the show. And I felt the show was sort of two sides of the same coin, and really complemented one another really well.